My name's Jonathan Grant, and thank you all very much indeed for your interest in today's webinar. As you can see, I hope on the screen, it's titled Digitalize Your Spare Parts and Save Millions of Dollars in All Your Capital Projects. Just worth noting, if I may, a technical note that the webinar is being recorded for wider distribution. So if you don't want to be recorded, please feel free to drop out. Our plan is to distribute the recording both on our website, through our YouTube channel, and probably on LinkedIn as well. In terms of some basic hygiene, as it were, if you want to ask a question, at the bottom of the screen you'll see two different icons that will allow you to do that. One is the triangle, square, and circle. If you go into that, that's called the activities icon. And then you will be able to type in a question there. It's a Q&A tab. Or if you want to ask a verbal question and raise your hand, probably easiest at the end of the session, then you'll see that actual hand there. If you click on that, then it'll notify me and the team that that's exactly what you want to do. And we'll essentially unmute you into the room, ask a question, and answer it as best we can. So let's kick off. The Kspir is a transformational technology, and it's based on 5 different modules, and you can see them here: the core module, the material master module, maintenance BOM, equipment masters, and data governance module. The core Kspir module significantly reduces the widely recognized wasted costs and recurring issues in the traditional SPIR process, highlighted in lessons learned by the team over many years of running capital projects. With Kspir, all the project SPIR data is entered into a single database, enabling a single view of the completion percentage, the data quality, and the status of each SPIR in the project from the moment that the SPIR is issued, allowing reviews to start earlier and smoothing the project resource requirement. The material master module allows you to preload your existing material master specifications into the system, which moves the creation phase of the project forward. We call that shift left. It's a relatively common term I'm sure you're familiar with, smoothing the project resource workload. This is also the module that drives the deduplication process. The maintenance bill of materials module dramatically reduces the cash spent on spare parts, moving from the just-in-case spares review to a review that squarely aligns the purchase of spare parts to the capability and logistics of the site. These savings are only visible on the owner-operator dashboard and show the cost of the recommended spares against the cost of the selected spares. These savings alone will be multiple times any cost of the software that we have to charge. The equipment master module, which I know will be of more interest to some than others, allows you to preload your existing equipment master specifications, such as those based on ISO 15924, or the CFOS system, and we know the CFOS 2 is coming out any day now. The data can then be entered by the OEM, your team, or a third-party data team. We do also integrate with other systems, a point again that I know will be of interest to a couple of people on the call. The data governance module enables the SPIR lines to be linked directly with your global material masters. The benefit of having all the SPIR records in a single database for review is seen immediately in this part of the process, where both equipment and spares records can be verified and linked so that identical spare parts can be identified and duplication of new records avoided. And in terms of the operational, financial, and sustainability value that we bring, our clients tell us that we reduce administrative overhead by about 60% across the life of the capital project. This continuous data handover, where all the data is put in a quality way right at the start from the OEM. The reduction in stock and optimization of working capital shows a reduction of around 30%. Obviously, every case is different. And now, of course, reducing carbon footprint is incredibly important. And so the reduction in the use of MRO spares means that you can reduce your carbon footprint dramatically. Now, I'm going to quickly introduce the 4 people that you see on the screen. Peter Reels is our founder and chairman. He's been in the business. I know many of you on the call know him as an old friend from various previous iterations in his career. But he founded Koios 7 years ago, and he's going to tell us a little bit about Kspir in a minute. Matt Fancourt's been working with Peter for the last 5 years. He's now a product manager and runs a development team. And Alikhan Mensayatov recently graduated about a year ago and joined us from Portsmouth University, where he got a first in artificial learning and artificial intelligence and machine learning. But I'm going to start with Peter. Peter, what inspired you to create the SPIR platform as a SaaS product?
Thank you, Jonathan. Before I answer that question, I thank everyone for attending today. I've worked with a number of you, watching you coming on the call. Great to see you all, and long time since we've spoken, but great to see you all. You'll all know my passion for sorting this process out. Truth was that I couldn't find a platform to manage the SPIR process or master data generally to the quality that I believe is required. So, being the stubborn sort I am, I started out to do it myself. But to answer your question directly, the main driver behind developing Kspir on the SaaS platform was simply that this type of platform brings to an end the spreadsheet chaos of the current SPIR process. It's widely acknowledged that spreadsheets are designed for performing calculations, and using them to exchange information causes considerable pain. It's only by getting rid of the spreadsheets that owner-operators can ensure the capital project information handover is managed effectively. Owner-operators can only achieve their strategic and operational goals by ending the spreadsheet chaos. As many of you will know, there's lots of issues in the traditional process. One of the key issues that the owner-operator faces is just a complete lack of visibility, both in the overall progress of the documents and in the content quality of the documents. And I've sat in many lessons learned meetings where the learning was, we need a system that allows the owner-operator to have visibility of the progress of the documents, and secondly, a system that allows the owner-operator to review and comment on the documents before this traditional data dump on handover day, which as a lot of my friends here have experienced angst with me. So yeah, thank you for the question, Jonathan.
Jonathan, you're muted.
That old trick. Sorry, unmute. Matt, can you please introduce the platform and explain how Kspir enables the owner-operator to see the sorts of summary information that would not be available to them if they were just using the traditional spreadsheet approach, or I might add, access database approach.
Let me quickly share my screen. Let me know when that's come through.
Yep,
should be able to log in. Okay, great. So as was said in the introduction to Kspir, Kspir is a cloud-based web application that enables the owner-operator to control, govern, and manage the SPIR document creation, collation, and part of the process, and also the material master part of the process alongside with some of our equipment master modules. So before I log in, I kind of wanted to set the scene to say that each organization who uses Kspir will have their own login, which provides them with their own sort of tailored view of the system and the projects they're involved in. So what we've got to show you today is as a demo environment that we've created with an owner-operator login called Super Major 1 PLC. So I log in here. Just to confirm now, can you see the project overview page?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So owner-operators set up a project or multiple projects within Kspir and essentially invite EPCs and equipment suppliers or original equipment manufacturers, OEMs, which we'll probably refer to them in the sort of following presentation, to collaborate on SPIR documents in this one single environment. So by using Kspir, owner-operators will have a view of the progress of the SPIR documents throughout the initial phase of the project, much earlier than they would with the traditional sort of Excel process of exchanging spreadsheets. So by using a single database, you can see that we can start to report on a lot of individual metrics. So we've got a summary here of a few reports that we put together for this demo environment. These are just document level reports, so summaries of the various documents that are inside our demo system, and we can go into reporting on the piece of individual equipment and reporting on individual spare lines as well. But even just the basic sides of the amount of documents that you've got, how many SPIRs you've got set up and are being completed, what's the status of those SPIRs, how many tags are linked to all of these SPIR documents, and then how many, and importantly, how many spare parts or how many SPIR lines are linked to all of these tags. So we can show some real, what is fairly basic reporting, but very difficult to actually get to in the traditional SPIR process. And then we can go into some more sort of detailed reporting, actually analysing across all of our documents within a project, the actual individual spare part costs and things like that. So the total savings of operating spares calculated as a difference between the cost of operating spares recommended by the OEM and the agreed cost of spares that you agree as an owner operator to purchase for operations. And then we can show these in different views as well, either on single cards or different types of charts. So yeah, in addition to this, we've also got some basic information on the project. So introduce the main parties of the project, the owner operators and the EPCs, and we can have multiple EPCs working on one particular project, and including some of the project milestones as well. So we've got some basic milestones of a project, including all the way to the end of life, but maybe this is you have smaller milestones within the design and procurement phase that you can add to here and link your SPIR documents to make sure that we've got a level of sort of a deadline for each of the SPIR documents linked to the actual milestones of the project. So here shows like a basic overview of the benefits of having all of this information in one system captured in a single database.
Matt, thanks very much for that. You mentioned the way the various actors in the process collaborate in the system. Can you show an example of this in a document?
Yes, of course. Yeah. So as I said, this is a overview report, a summary report on our dashboard of the documents in this particular project. If I navigate to the documents page on the left-hand side here, I'll actually zoom a little bit in case some of you have smaller screens. You can see again we've got the document summaries and different reporting that we have here. A couple of additional reports here. We've got this the count of owner of OEMs and the documents that they're contributing to and the status here. But if we go to the overview of the document, so anyone who is logged into the system and is part of a project will see a view of the documents that they relate to. So each document is linked to an EPC, an OEM, and the owner operator, and of course the project itself. So if you're logging in as an OEM or you're logging in as an EPC, you will see your own tailored view of this particular document screen that demonstrates some of the key parts of the document that you've been working on. So examples of this include the document number, the equipment supplier who's working on it, especially important from the EPC and the owner operator's view, the completeness, which is made measurable because of the data quality standards that we build the system to, information on the spare parts and the number of lines in that particular document, the status of the document, some information on when it was last modified and the user that last modified that, and then also some information on the deadlines, and we can start to view and edit this. So we've got a very good overview and a clear view of all of the documents that have been created in the project, by who and who they've been assigned to. If I take a look at one of these documents, let's go into the view mode of this particular document. You can see now the screen that, regardless of whatever actor you are in the document, that you'll be shown with. So this shows that we've tried to recreate the document in a Maya principle, which is MAYA, most advanced yet acceptable. We know people are familiar to using spreadsheets, and we tried to bring that into the 21st century. You can see here we've got the SPIR header section at the top, which is most of your purchase order information. We've then got all of the tag records that are linked to it, and if you go into these deeper, you can see the actual information you can get about the tag. And then the part of the system that we're all familiar with, which is the SPIR lines and the relationship of these SPIR lines to the tags that you have in the document. So you can see here that, as I've said, each individual actor in this particular that's responsible for partially filling in this document, or apply, or as an OEM maybe adding all of the spare part lines, they see this particular view. So you're all collaborating in one space in real time, and each person can see. It's importantly, each person can only see the things that are relevant to them.
Matt, thank you very much indeed. That's great. Let's go back to Peter, our founder. We can see from this first view of the platform that we've just had from Matt, the benefits that visibility, that transparency, that shift left brings to the owner operator. What other benefits does the system bring?
Oh, thank you, Jonathan. Thanks, Matt. Yes, as you can see, one of the immediate benefits there we were talking about was that there was a structure in place. So one of the the OEM has a form to fill in. He can fill it in. He can't move he can move the fields around in a different way, but ultimately we're getting the same fields of data. So we're not changing the structure of a spreadsheet, which is a complete nightmare when you receive them otherwise. So we started that element of control. The next sort of key benefit, it's all around control really, is the ability to control not only the structure of the document, but also the quality of the data in each document. So as a number of you will know, I'm a bit of a standards fanatic, data quality standards fanatic, and so we use best practice data architecture from basically from ISO 8000. It's an international data quality standard, and we use that to achieve the structure, the architecture of the system, and to control the structure of the documents. So this architecture includes a data dictionary, which we call colloquially the kiosk thesaurus, and data specifications. Now, one of the errors that, one of the confusions that a lot of people have is what is a data dictionary. Some of them in the data cleansing industry call a data dictionary a data specification. The two things are very, very different. And it was that fundamental understanding that made me realize that there wasn't a software out there that had this architecture. And once that became apparent to me, then it was quite easy then to go on and create the system. So these specifications, the data specifications we talk about, are constructed using concepts from the dictionary. I liken it to a bit like building objects from Lego blocks. So if you think of each concept in the dictionary as being a Lego brick, and then you add the Lego bricks in to make the shape you want. And it really is as simple as that. It's reusable and everything else. So, and the point about this is that you have to build quality in from the start. This is the way to avoid costly rework. In a number of the blogs that I've written, I've talked about the 1-10-100 principle. It costs you $1 to get it right, $10 to correct it, and $100 when it all goes wrong. And it's very, very important. This is how you save money in the whole process. They're soft savings, but they are considerable. And the clients that we've been working with absolutely realize that when they see the system and they realize how much effort it's going to save them in the whole process, they're really empowered by all that. Jonathan.
Thank you, Peter. That's great. It's a bit unfair not to go to Alikhan next, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go back to Matt. Matt, Peter's introduced the whole idea of the dictionary here, and I think we should really have a quick look at the data specification screens and demonstrate how they offer the flexibility that Peter's been talking about, and really getting rid of that need for the costly rework of documents that have been delivered.
Yeah, I will jump into that now. So as I mentioned, we've got three sort of sections of this particular document. So we've got the SPIR header section, we've got the tag details section, we've got tag information, and we've got the spares or spare part and SPIR line section. We're going to actually edit this particular document. Once we come to this position, you can see the sort of the power of our data specifications. We'll go into actually the configuration in a moment, but every single field that you see in this particular document, whether that's all of the blue fields across the top here, all of the blue fields here, or any of the ones that are inside this particular specification, are all configurable to the requirements of not only that individual user, but the individual projects. So not only the individual owner operator, but they can change them per particular project. And this is set up at the project configuration stage when we start to work with different clients. So we'll go through with the team to say which fields do you need, and importantly, what are the constraints and the data constraints in that particular field. So an example of this is, let's say that we've introduced a field called SPIR's relationship to unit. Now, if I was coming to edit this field in an Excel document, I could probably type in whatever I wanted. So what we've done here is we've linked a list of values to this particular field. So the OEM who's coming to fill this in can only select from a list of values. If they choose to put in a value that's not valid against your specification, which in some cases may be relevant, then at least we know that, and we can measure that this value is not particularly valid. Importantly, something I didn't touch upon in the first demonstration is we can actually see the history of all of these different, the audit history of all of the different, sorry, not that particular one, the audit history of all of the different fields in this particular SPIR document. But let's go back to the specifications. So when you're building up the configuration of this, we have here 3 different specifications: the SPIR document header details, the SPIR tag details, and the spare parts details. I'll go into one of these now. So down here, you can see that each of these are properties that we can add, and they are highlighted in blue because, as Peter mentioned, they are concepts from a concept dictionary. So a concept dictionary essentially means we can link various different terminology and in the same language and in different languages to these properties and definitions as well, so that they are understandable in your own language, whether that's a foreign language or a synonym, or a language that's the same language but synonymous to it. So if you use type of part or SPIR's relationship to unit to describe this, you can select your own language there. And we've got a definition to say, to give some context to this particular field. Each field then is assigned a data type, and list of values, string and measured values are the most common data types in our system. We try to avoid using strings where possible, but where we do use strings, we try to add a representation if it's relevant. And we also can add different units of measures. So if you've got a particular measured value that has a particular unit of measure and a representation, we can add that into the system to ensure data is being captured in a single, in a consistent and accurate way across all of your documents. So each OEM, no matter what document they're filling in, is choosing from this particular list. I think that as I said, we can do this per project and per specification. So each of those individual parts of the SPIR document can be managed in that way. And an additional thing that I'll touch upon quickly before I hand back to you, Jonathan, is we can also add in sensitivity of different fields and privacy. So you can add what's called private networks to each of your individual fields, and then that you can invite different organizations to join that particular private network. And when they're viewing that version of the document, they will view the fields that are relevant to them. If they're not included in a private network, then they won't see that particular field. Actually, before I do hand it back, sorry, Jonathan, I'm also going to go into actually the dictionary. So as I've said, all of these particular properties or the values all come from a concept dictionary. Example here of deep groove ball bearing, where we've got various different sources of the terminology deep groove ball bearing. We've also got different translations. This comes from your concept dictionary. By using Kiosk, the software, and Kspir in particular, you also get this concept dictionary with it as part of the configuration. It can double up as a business glossary. So if you've got information that you want to share around the business in terms of key acronyms, key abbreviations, and terminology that you use across your project, then they can be added to this. And these are the building blocks, the Lego blocks that Peter was referring to, that are used to build up your specifications and control the quality of your data in the project.
Great, thanks, Matt. And that seems to clearly emphasize the point about how using the Kspir platform can immediately save money, time, and resource across the whole project. So Peter, back to you. What other immediate cost benefits does the owner operator get from using the platform?
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Matt. Just for
Yeah,
Peter, you're on mute.
Good start. Right. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Jonathan. Before I answer that, Matt brought up, showed you the system and showed you a concept with multiple languages and multiple terminologies. And at the top of each one of those concepts was an identifier. And this is really, really important for the people who are interested in machine readable data and semantic interoperability. This is how we achieve that. So one of the reasons why I chose the architecture and around that we've built the system on is looking ahead to how the machine readable data is created and exchanged. So I'm doing a lot of work at the moment in Korea with their smart factories, and one of the problems they had was a lot of the machines wouldn't talk to each other, and it's all around this whole question of semantic interoperability. And I've been very lucky to be working on another standard recently, ISO 29002. It's been a work of a labour of love. But it's going to be published next year, and it's a really, really important document. So we've had complete international cooperation and input into finally cracking the problem of semantic interoperability, and that's very key that our system can do that. And perhaps we need to make more of that point at times. But back to your question, Jonathan, there's three key areas in the next stage of the traditional SPIR process where the owner-operator suffers, frankly, avoidable costs. First and most obvious issue is the duplication of purchase spares. Not being able to see the same product across different documents in the traditional process. I've turned up at owner-operators where they've had a room full of people scouring through spreadsheets, or none of them talking to each other and all buying the same spares. I mean, it's madness. It's why when you go to a site many years later, they got lots of spares, and people who know me used to say my patented dust micrometer gauge, I could tell how old the spares were because they were never going to be used. Why have you bought what do you do when a pump fails? We send it out for repair. Well, why have you got the spares? This whole thing is just so not joined up. The second issue is the cataloging. One of the advantages of what we've done, linking the SPIR lines to material masters in the owner-operator system is hard work and it's costly. We bring all that forward. We enable the owner-operator to bring their existing material masters into the system, and some of the smart matching that Alikhan will show you later on. We're able to bring in some of that and do some mapping around that, so we can say, okay, this SPIR line does exist already, and add the material masters into their material master number into there. So it's a huge saving further on the process. And the third one is, as I mentioned earlier, my dust micrometer gauge. The buying of recommended spares that are not required, and a lot of you have worked with me before. So telling you about this, but the obviously the SPIR form doesn't have criticality on it, quite rightly. It doesn't. It's not able to understand the response to failure strategy at a particular site, and so that none of that information is available if you're just purchasing purchasing the spares straight off your spreadsheets. And that's what we try to bring together with all the different modules, and try and solve those problems, because it is a holistic process. It's a whole process, and the big advantage of what we've done with Kspir is we can bring the start of that process forward. By being able to see and evaluate the SPIR documents as they're being created, we can start to look. Oh yeah, that looks like something that already exists in our system. We can start to map all those processes. So the mad rush after data handover to create operational data for a plant that's in commissioning is we reduce a lot of that stress. That's the idea of what we can do. So some of those issues are dealt with in modules that we're not going to be discussing today, but I'll hand back to Jonathan and then on to Alikhan to show you some of the other parts of the system.
Great, Peter, thanks. That really, I hope, brings home the potential for reducing money, working capital, carbon tied up, and avoid wasting cash on spares that will never be used. As you say, Peter, we're focusing today on the 2 of the 5 modules. There will be other webinars. The next one's going to be in about a month, and that'll probably be on the MBOM module. And looking at the basic and the material master modules today. So, Alikhan, you're up. Let's take the second point that Peter raised. Can you share with the audience, and thank you all very much, there's a whole bunch of people on here, and not many leaving as well, which is even better news. Can you share with the audience how the system has the ability to embed the owner-operator's own material master specifications into the SPIR document so that these could potentially be populated as part of the SPIR document completion?
Yep, sure. Thank you, Jonathan. Hope you can hear me well. As you can see here on the screen, and as Matt has shown you, COIS allows you to create data specifications, and these come in different types. So you can have your SPIR specifications, the document header, the tag details, but you can also have material specifications, or you might be referring to them as noun modifiers, but we call them items of supply. And let's have a look at an example, a deep groove ball bearing, and let's have a look at what it has. So here, very similarly to what you've seen in the SPIR specifications, we allow you to configure all the properties that you would like the manufacturer to fill in to describe this material. You can specify, more importantly, you can specify what values they can fill in and can't. So you can control the representation and the unit of measurement, and all of these small details, like, you know, separating the unit of measurement and then restricting it to a specific type of, like, number of decimal places. These are really important to ensuring high data quality. And also, you can configure which properties are required for the manufacturer to fill in. So unless they fill them in, they will not be able to submit the document or like update the status of the document. So they will be required to do this before they can switch. And as Matt has said before, all of these blue text here are concepts. And if we click on it, you have alternative terms. And given that you can populate multiple languages into the same concepts, it allows us to have a very smooth transition to, for example, if you have equipment manufacturers that are German, and we can simply change the language quite quickly. And this is importantly not Google Translation. These are the terms that have been inserted in German, and so similar can be done in any of the languages that you need. So let's go back to English, and now let's see how these specifications are embedded into the SPIR documents. So if we now go back and view one of these, okay, here we can see that, I mean, there is a field on the SPIR document for a spare part class name, and once the manufacturer selects a spare part class name that matches a class of specification that you've created, they will be prompted to fill in the material information that looks like this. And here we can see these are all the properties that you've said that the manufacturer should fill in. The red ones are those that are required. And yeah, if it's a list of values, these are the only things they can select. But also importantly, for each of the values, for each cell, you can see the audit history. You can see when and which user has added it, who's changed it, who's deleted it. You can also view it for the whole document. For example, see the audit of all the spare parts that you've had. And this is how the specifications are embedded into the SPIR documents. I mean, on the audit data, you can also view the activity feed, and you can in general see everything that the content has been updated, that the document was created. You can see all of this on the dashboards, and it's something that you'll never be able to do on a simple Excel spreadsheet. Back to you, Jonathan.
That's great, Alikhan. Thank you very much. And I can see questions starting to come in, and I'd reiterate what I said at the start. If you use the Q&A, I can see a couple of questions already. If not, in about 5-10 minutes time after the last part of the presentation, then we can have some questions using the audio. But Alikhan, can we go back to the first point that Peter raised, and that's deduplication? Can you share with the audience how the system's been developed to help the owner-operator highlight potential duplicates in the platform? And just for the avoidance of doubt, this is my favorite bit.
It is my favorite bit as well, Jonathan. But okay, here, if we go back to the document, we can see that there is a column called potential duplicates, and there are 3 types of notifications that you can receive here. So first of all is this orange bell here that says that there are potential duplicates that the system suggests that can be the same items from different documents. And we can see here that this item it has the same part number, same manufacturer. And yeah, maybe upon reviewing it, we can say that these spare parts are duplicated. So maybe we can just link them together like this. And then everyone and the engineers that are going through each document, they will be able to see that, okay, this item has been, like this item appears on different SPIR documents. You can see like if the decision has been made on how many they agreed to buy there, and it allows engineers to make more informed decisions in general. The second type of notifications is that there are simply this item has already been grouped with other spare parts on this or on another document. And the third one is the combination of the two. So the yellow one here, you can see that this item has been grouped with another item, and there are also potential duplicates that the system recommends, or you can accept the suggestion or not. So now that we viewed it here, let's go into the Analyze tab. Here, we can see the reports on individual SPIR lines. So we can see here, for example, the lead time, the count of lead time. We can see also the report on the duplicates. And we can see here that the system suggests that there is about 33% like duplicate SPIR lines across all the documents. We can see the savings, and on the summary tab, we can also see the breakdown of savings by spare part class name. And if we have a closer look, since we've already started looking at deep groovable bearings, let's carry on with this example. We can see that we're not making a whole lot of savings on this. So let's see what we can do about this. We can drill down into this view of the detail page. Here we can see spare parts or SPIR lines across all the documents in this project, and we can configure whichever properties we would like to see here. Let's choose something helpful like supplier recommended operating spares, unit price, and maybe recommend spares agreed. If we sort this, we can see here that some of the items have already been linked together. We can see that they have the same mapping number and they have the same color of the circle here. And so there are 3 types of duplicates that you can have and 3 things that you can basically do about it. So the first and the most obvious one is where you see that there is an item from a different document with the same manufacturer and the same part number. We can simply enter deduplicate mode, combine these 2, group. And now we can see that they have the same mapping number, the same circle, and it's very simple, right? The second one, a bit more complicated one, is we can see that, I mean, it's a different part number and a different manufacturer. However, because as I've shown you before, because COIAS allows you to force manufacturers to fill in the required properties, you can use that in order to identify items better. So now we can see this material description is a concatenated description derived from the material details that the manufacturers have filled in according to your specification. And because they were not able to progress the document without filling this in, we can now examine this, analyze it, and actually see that this item is the same bearing. Just different manufacturers use different suffixes, but it's a deep groove ball bearing with the same diameter, and it has C on both sides. Okay, nice. We can also enter deduplicate mode and group these items together. And the last one, and my favorite one, is when manufacturers just obscure the original manufacturer's part number and just put in their internal serial number or something like that in order to, well, let's not talk about that, but you know, but again, because they are forced to fill in the material description, we are able to analyze this and compare them, and we see that this is still the same product, just being described in a different way. And we can once again group all of these items together. Now, let's do a very simple purchasing decision. I mean, it is at least simple for me. We see here that these 4 parts from different suppliers cost us about $2,000. However, this supplier charges us only $200 for this. So if it was up to me, I would just simply say, okay, I'm not going to buy anything from him, not going to buy anything from him or from him. And I'm just simply gonna go and buy 10 or 10 from this guy instead. And just like this, we've already saved around $10,000 here. So this is a simple power of Kspir in allowing deduplication.
Great, Alikhan. Thank you very much indeed for that. I really enjoyed that bit. Naturally, I suppose when I said that's my favorite bit, it's the kind of first equal with the internationalization. I've read many a case study from master data management companies where they talk about, oh, well, we managed to go trilingual in about 2 years. Well, this is off the shelf, as many languages as you want. So thank you for that. And thank everyone for their presentations. And thank you all for staying on the call. And we've got a number of questions. I'm actually going to start with a question from Robert Sheard, because it relates exactly to this last part. Thank you, Robert, for this question. Are these duplicates? I think you mean that Alikhan's talking about alternatives, e.g. same specification, a different manufacturer, and I'm going to give that one to Peter.
Thanks. Hi, Robert. How are you, mate? All right. Yes, we talk about potential duplicates because duplicates are in the eye of the beholder, as they say. Some people might have specifications, brand specifications. They might say, right, we only take SPIR bearings, so the SNR equivalent wouldn't be applicable. But as you can guess, because you know your bearings, Robert. That, as you can guess, that the idea of the demonstration there was to show that it didn't matter what the part number said. We can recognise that. We've been doing a lot of work with a lot of the bearing manufacturers and getting their data and creating the sorts of environments where we can map. This is again for another demonstration where we're creating a global product data library. Using again the same basic standards, and then we're able to say, right, okay, we can manage the quality of the data. We can start then to match the material masters or the equipment masters in the ERP system to the original data from the manufacturer through the specification, so that we get some authoritative data. One of the big problems with data cleansing, as many of you will know, is that you never really know what rubbish has been put into the cells. And we can automate some of that, and that'll be for another demonstration in the future. Hope that answers your question, Robert.
Before we move on, I'd like to sort of add to that as well. From my point of view, from a product management point of view, designing the system, it's really up to the owner operator of what they would like to link together as a duplicate. We're working on improving the suggestions of duplicates, but it's not something that where we say that is a duplicate, so therefore you must link them together. That ultimately is down to that particular project and this particular owner operator's decision to do that. Alikhan demonstrated the ability to, with those notifications, to show potential duplicates. Now, in the background, we're using manufacturer names and manufacturer part numbers, for example, to identify potential duplicates. And also we're constantly working on improving the ability to identify, using the data we have available, whether something can be a duplicate or is a potential duplicate or a suggestion as well. And the benefit to anyone who subscribes to the Kspir system is all of these improvements that we do in the background are automatically deployed and available for our clients to benefit from. So ultimately, it is really up to you, Robert, and the way that you do it. But we will help to suggest potential duplicates to help to automate that process.
Great, thanks, Matt. A question from Matt Bayfield. Matt, great demonstration. You say, I don't think other people can see these questions. How do we move things forward with you? How do you engage with that? That's kind of a great question. I know you're a very influential leader in the oil and gas sector and the data sector. So the simple answer is people have mine, Peter's, Alikhan, or Matt's details are all on LinkedIn. So feel free to get in touch. We are absolutely thrilled with the response to not just the webinar, but the last year or so, and the traction we're getting in the marketplace globally, which is really very exciting. So thank you for that question. Now a question from Robbie Shepherd. Robbie, thank you. And your question is, I can see a lot of thought that's gone into the underlying architecture, and I think this is a great question. But how do you manage the human factor when it comes to entering information? If there's one place it can go wrong, it's always there somewhere. So Peter, do you want to start with that one?
Can't believe you asked that, Robbie. Nice to speak to you, my friend. Yes, you saw part of the way that we manage it by creating the data types and adding in the lists of values that then controls the data. And there was some of the result of that, as you could see in the matching that Alikhan was able to do later on, because we're always using the same term of metal shield or whatever the value might be. As you know, Robbie, it's the values and the units of measurement that are the real problems around here, and we try and do as much as we can to control that. But the other thing, as I mentioned a little bit with Robert's answer, is that we're working on building a product data catalog that then will automatically look at the data that's being created as they're creating, as person is creating the data, and they can link it and they can say, okay, this field, does it exist in the manufacturer's data? Let's bring the value, so that we're getting some sort of authoritative data. We're starting to measure data quality on lots of different ways, and authoritative data is one of the ways in which we match that. But I'm sure Matt will want to add something to my answer.
You actually covered all the points I think that I was going to cover, really. So yeah, I would agree. Eliminating the human factor is difficult, and it's something that, as when you have control, when you use the concept dictionary and use the data specifications in the right way, you can mitigate and improve the quality of the data and the consistency of the data that you're going to get. Whereas you've got different representations, we can have different regex patterns to control fields, to give you a measure on not only the completeness but the validity of a particular field. So it's all about consistently measuring it and getting a hold of that before it's too late and before you can't update it or before you can't pass it back to the OEM to correct. And then yeah, to touch upon what Peter said with our product data library, we're also looking in the same way as you can link your that spare part line to a material specification that's filled in. You'll be able to link the spare part line to an item of production, essentially the manufacturer's data, which will have the correct part number and the correct attributes associated with that part number. Now, obviously, they may also have that error of human factor, but it's a lot more accurate and a lot more authoritative when it comes from the manufacturer. That's all I had to add there. Probably repeating some of the things you said.
No, thank you very much, and thank you for the icons. We can see you're saying yes. It's a curious world where It's a bit weird, this. But anyway, so the questions really are starting to rock in, which is absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. Len Planet, does the platform integrate with the main ERPs, including automatically pulling and feeding SKU data into and from those? And there's a similar question from Daniel Giddens, who I know is a standards expert. Could you elaborate on the system's interoperability with things like building information modeling? We're now seeing model elements form part of the wider asset management strategy. Having the system interrelate with things like BIM would be quite powerful. So this is really an interoperability question. Peter, I think that one's for you.
Yeah, thank you, Len. Thank you, Dan. And there's a couple of other questions that almost we'll touch on the same sort of answers. But yes, Matt will follow up on the technical details of this question. But effectively, yeah, we are designed and built to integrate. And as I talked about earlier, it's all about exchanging data without loss of meaning. That's the key thing that we do. And to do that, we have to create machine readable data, and by implication, we're very, very close from that point of view to integration. Now, obviously, there's some other things around integration that you need to do that. But pulling and feeding SKU data in from different systems yeah, and all that depends on what the owner operator is using. So some of them use companies that we're associated with, like Boomi, and to put out, because obviously there's firewall implications about that. But yeah, absolutely. Matt will explain more about why the system is designed to integrate automatically and putting feeds in.
Yeah. So thanks, Peter. So our software is built in as a cloud web application that sits on a web application which you see, which is essentially a stateless application, links into our RESTful API, and then to our database. Now, that RESTful API is purposely built in that way, separate from both the database and the application, to allow integration with other different systems, different proprietary systems. So we are flexible in the ways that we will that we link to. On top of that as well, just to go into a bit more detail onto that, including the automatic pulling and feeding of SKU data into and from those. So one of the things we haven't touched upon in this particular webinar is the data governance module, but that is at that point where you're starting to then govern your material masters. So you're taking feeds from your existing ERP systems into your, essentially a copy of that catalog in our system. And then you can start to link those individual SPIR lines or groups of SPIR lines that you're getting from a new project. So say you've got global material masters, for example. You can then link those into the system and link data to it, and then keep them in sync with your ERP system.
Great, thanks, Matt. Now, we're going to try and answer all these questions properly, and so if we do go over the hour, I apologise, but I think it's really important that we do try and do them all justice. So there's a question from Anonymous, and it's a great question. Looking at data cleansing, is every application a new one, or can missing / erroneous data be corrected using previous data sets on Kspir? And I think this is really a question about specifications, Peter, isn't it?
There's a number of different questions, points within that question. One of it, of course, has just been covered in the sense that you know, we are working and putting data in, and there's another question down there about, you know, how can we load data into the system. Perhaps we should have said in answer to the last one, it's not only pulling data into the system via an API, we can also upload via spreadsheets that are, you know, and we can work with to configure those to answer another of the questions that's down there. But data cleansing, yeah, so going back to something that Matt said earlier, that the data dictionary is kind of is a global dictionary, and then each individual client takes a section of that. The global dictionary, the global data dictionary covers lots and lots of different domains, and so you don't necessarily, if you're in a particular domain, you don't want all the other terms and definitions for lots of other areas. So at the client level, we break that down. Now, the point about this being is that once you use the data dictionary and set the terminology that you want, and build data specifications you want, you can link that to existing material masters. So in the data cleansing module that we have, you can bring those in. As we actually going to change the name, I think, from ungoverned records to Matt will tell me off in a minute for still using the old terminology. But we called them ungoverned records. We bring them into the system, and we start to match them with new records, and that's effectively to some of what we do within Kspir. So yes, we can take old data sets. We can work with brownfield and greenfield on the SPIR. So we can take old SPIRs, load them in a different way, and then do the process. So hopefully, sir, that answers your question.
I've got something to add to that as well. Essentially, although not demonstrated and a particular feature that we haven't yet integrated into the system, I think that it is completely possible for us to, if you've linked SPIR lines to other SPIR lines in other documents, and there's missing information that's relevant to both and not to a specific OEM that should be filling that particular data in, and there's no reason why we can't use previous data sets or data sets from the other projects that are linked to that item to fill in that data. There's definitely something that we can look at. It's not necessarily something that we've got a feature that we can demonstrate and show, but it's definitely something we can look at. Going back to quickly something else that was in Matthew Bayfield's question about how do you engage with us as well, and it might not have necessarily been commenting on this, but it's something I think is useful to add. As sort of the product owner of Kspir, we have a backlog of development that we want to look into, but we are also guided by our clients. So if there's some valuable features of the system that's either not even on our backlog, which I'd hope it wouldn't be, or it's something that is lower down our priority list, we can work with you to sort of bring that forward as well. It's for the benefit of all users of Kspir, and as I said, we are a web application, so those features that are applicable to all different projects across different clients, once they're released, they're available for you to use, as long as you've got the right subscription to the right module.
Great, thanks, Matt. And now a question from Anish Moham. I hope I pronounced that right. Is it possible to upload the information using Excel, considering the huge list of spares for equipment or for a package item?
Peter touched upon that in one of the last questions about, we've got the ability to do that. There's a couple of considerations. So we can export the data specification, and it includes all of the drop downs and list of values onto an Excel sheet, which you can fill in as an OEM, transform your data from your existing spreadsheets into this one. One of the important considerations here is when you're loading those in, is ensuring that you're not just absorbing the data quality issues that you had in the main Excel sheet that you bring into this. So it's not necessarily something that we encourage just mass importing of data into our system, because there is a part of you should clean it at that point in time as you're importing it. But what we do is in the downloads that we have of our specifications, we have those drop downs, those that you see as listed values built into the Excel sheet to help you guide it through, so you can even copy and paste data into that, and then and make sure it conforms before you upload it. And if it doesn't conform, then it'll be loaded in as a pending value, and it'll be measurable as such in the system.
But also something that could be probably added to the part that if there is a huge list of spares for equipment, in terms of the owner operators, like the OEMs, they are able to upload their information into our Kspir module, and they are able to create a digital catalog. They are able to allow link SPIRs to the equipment, and then they wouldn't need to repeatedly re-put this, rewrite this information in Kspir. They're just able to link these items and upload and maybe edit and add the relevant information for that particular SPIR document. But yes, they are able to create this list and then just move them around and reuse them rather than retype them every time.
Great, and thank you for that, Anish. That was a great question. And I really like the look of the next one too. I don't know the answer. I think I know the answer, but I'm not going to guess. And this is from Anonymous about 10 minutes ago. Does the platform pull price per part data and provide a size of the prize? I think you mean a sort of prediction figure ahead of data cleansing, deduplication, etc. Well, we certainly give data quality scores, but Peter, can we give them you're going to say $2 million? So,
absolutely.
Okay.
Of course. No. This was covered right at the beginning, and apologies if you missed it because we did start pretty promptly on time. Matt showed the dashboard that as the OEM adds the price into the SPIR document, into each SPIR line, there's a whole report that updates immediately and says, this is the cost of your recommended operating spares, this is the cost of your recommended commissioning spares, and so I think that's a really, really important point, because one of the things that I think we've talked about it before is that there's a lot of waste, frankly, and if we can measure how much following the process properly and making that process easy to follow saves the owner operator, then that's great. Only the owner operator sees that, and I'll just emphasize that point. The OEM doesn't see that that figure. But yeah, very, very important part of the reporting. All the reporting is configurable, and we can certainly do a demonstration on the reporting privately to you if you'd like to have a look at that, sir.
Just to add to that and expand on that configurability, in the same way that we look to building, well, first of all, there's a suite of different reports that you can just add to your particular project, assuming you have the appropriate fields in the SPIR document to produce that report. But we can very, very quickly put together new reports and different charts and visuals for someone to add to a particular project. We've got all of the data in one place, and it's a consistent query essentially to our database to pull out a specific report that then we can allow to be filterable. So any of these different new reports, I would put under the package of the same thing as of priority development and working with our clients to develop something that's valuable to them. If there's a particular report that you would want in a particular project, then we can make that available for you to add to it and configure yourselves.
Great, thank you. And another one from Anonymous. I'd love to know who you are. If you tell me afterwards, that would be great. But we're very happy to answer the question. How is the final bill of material linked, let's say, in SAP? Okay, Peter, you're going to take that one?
Yeah. You have to wait till the next episode. But no, seriously, the whole part of the process is to create the different types of bombs. As you see in the next presentation, we can create different types of bombs within this. So if you've got a bomb that's tied to a particular failure mode or a particular service that you have to carry out, we have the ability to create all of those. And then depending on what system you're using, SAP, the MAST, MAST sort of fields and tables, it goes back to the other points. We work with you to load the data back in. But again, it depends. A lot of it depends on your SAP configuration. But we create the master data. You think of our system as kind of a governance system that sits above the ERP systems, and then we work out how to get it into the ERP systems. They're far more constrained than our system is.
Great, Peter. Thank you very much. And the last question, unless anyone's got any final ones, is again from Robert Sheard. And this goes back to the point I made earlier. Well, I didn't quite make it, but I did hint that we've got some very clever AI and machine learning developers, and one of them smiling on the screen now. So we haven't pitched ourselves as an AI company. or a machine learning company, because frankly, everyone's doing that now, and it's much better just to be really, really good at what you do. But the question is, do you have a place for AI in building data sets? So Alikhan, that's got to be for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it really depends on what are we talking about in terms of building data sets. But one of the things that we are using and are in the midst of developing and integrating into our system is using AI for suggesting duplicates. And it's one of those really useful ways of actually using AI for making predictions on, like, based on previous links that like other people have linked these items together, and things like examining and comparing the strings of like the material descriptions. We are able to utilize machine learning to make predictions that these are likely to be duplicates. I don't know if that's particularly what you're referring to in terms of building data sets, but we are definitely using AI. I think, Peter, I don't know if you're saying something, but you're on mute.
Yeah. I'll just say I'll follow on from that. Just we obviously employed Alikhan exactly for that purpose, but we were also working with the University of Southampton, and we've got 6 projects, in fact, being presented to us tomorrow. We'll be working on all summer, all around machine learning and AI and the capabilities, and looking at the various problems. There are some great things it can do, and actually some serious things that it can't do. And so we're learning a lot. We're investing a lot of time. The university have been absolutely brilliant in providing resource for us. And so yeah, we'll AI. I think, you know, we're learning all the time about what's possible, and yeah, we'll make strides there, I think.
Yes, and I think, you know, I'm the non-technical guy, as you can tell, but you know, certainly we're working on algorithms around onboarding data as well to make that piece easier as well. But you know, I think really as an organisation, we take the view that AI is a de facto given, you know, and it's a bit like traditional. It's become traditional quite quickly. It's getting better and better all the time. Large language models, we've been working with small language models, vectors, graph databases, all these sorts of things are now part of the vernacular here at Koyos. But I'd like to thank everybody very much and wrap up the conversation. As I say, there will be another webinar in about a month. We're slightly just looking at Peter's diary because he's going to be in Norway at an ISO standard. So if anyone's in Norway and Stavanger in the middle of October would like to meet our great leader, then I'm sure he'd love to meet you. And thank you for the very generous questions, the generous comments as people have been leaving about it. As I say, we're easy to get hold of. Apart from when I'm asleep, I'm normally on my phone, much to my family's disgust. So you should get an excuse. Sunday is not a great day. I'll be playing cricket. But thank you all very much for joining the call. I hope it's of interest. Please feel free to ask as many questions as you like. We think we're onto something special here, and we'd love to get to know how we can help you solve your problems. Thank you very much indeed. Let it rock.
Thank you all.